More people are going to kind of be trickling in, so that's fine. So I want to get up really quick and introduce our special guest this evening. Many of y'all have had a chance over the last few months to get to meet Miss Rebecca. She has been coming kind of on and off to different youth events we've had over the last few months, Sunday nights and Wednesday nights. And so some of y'all have got to know her really well. Some of y'all haven't got to know her yet. But Pastor Dustin and I have had a chance to sit down with Rebecca and get to hear her testimony. And she has a really cool story. And one thing I always try to do with all of you as students, guys and girls, I want to encourage you to share your story. And I also want to encourage you that whatever it is that God puts in your life, that's either a gift or talent or a passion that you have, that you use it as a gift from God back to Him for His glory. And so that comes in many different ways. That comes in some of y'all that are athletes, and like me, want to be athletes. That displays itself in that way. For others of you, and artists and all that kind of stuff, it displays itself like that. And so God has given Rebecca not only a really cool story, but He's also given her a passion for writing. And that was one thing that we talked about, was that my encouragement for her to continue using those gifts that God's given her. So I'm not going to say anything else. I just want to welcome Rebecca. She's going to have the night to kind of share her testimony, kind of share what God's laid on her heart. And there will be a time that you can look at different books that she has for sale and whatnot. While she's speaking, I'm going to do what I can. Do you have any way to receive different forms of payment at all, or how do you, or what type of payment do you just cash only, or for their books and everything?
If they have a card, I do have that.
You do have a swipe?
I do.
Okay. All right. Well, if something happens, you want to text your mom or dad or significant other that has cards if y'all don't have them.
And
or
I
if you want,
have a website.
Or if she has a website, or if you want to do layaway and you want me to buy it, we'll take that. Just know we charge interest, okay? And so once y'all give it up for Mr. Rebecca, you come. Get your timer. Here, I'll tell you what. Why don't you make sure you add 2 minutes back, because I took that in your invitation, or your not invitation, but your introduction. You're doing great, so I'll
Hi, everybody. Okay, raise your hand if you've seen me before. Everybody. Okay. I don't know everybody in this room. I know a couple of you. I know you've probably seen me, but you don't know really a whole lot about me. So tonight, you're going to hear a story, but you're not going to hear just any story. You're going to hear a story that God wrote for me. And one thing that you should know before I get started is that I'm not just talking to you. I'm also talking to myself. This message tonight isn't just for the people sitting in front of me, but I'm also talking to myself. Just because I stand in front of people and talk to them on a regular basis doesn't take away the reality that I'm just like you. I'm going to go to bed tonight just like you, and I'm going to wake up tomorrow just like you. So you should know that I'm just like you, and this is what I get to do on a regular basis, and I want you to know that it's an honor to be here, and it's a pleasure to be standing up here with you tonight. I've wanted to come here for about 3 years, and it's finally happening. So you guys are helping my dreams come true, so thank you so much. Okay, so my name is Rebecca, and everything that you see right now, just throw that out the window, because I'm fixing to blow your mind, and everything that you see right now isn't always what it looks like. But before I continue, there's somebody here that needs to be recognized, and I have some very special guests. Tonight my grandparents are here. Can y'all wave? Hey! And my papa just turned 85. They haven't heard me speak in 3.5 years, and so they're here tonight. So please just welcome them real quick before I get started. Happy birthday. Hello. And I have some neighbors too. But I'm very excited to be here, and the fact that they're all here to show their support means a lot. And each and every one of you are very special to me. So everything that you see right now isn't what it always used to be like. I have something called cerebral palsy, and that's a really big word, and you may have heard it. It's actually very common, but a lot of people don't really understand what that's about. Cerebral palsy is a physical and mental disability. It affects my brain as well as my physical body. I did not used to look like this, and I didn't walk like this, and a long time ago I used to wear braces on my legs, and I used to be in a wheelchair. I don't take it for granted that I am standing here with you tonight. I've had 5 surgeries, I've worked my way out of a wheelchair twice, and I've learned how to walk 3 times. So to say that it's an honor to be here It really is. I do have cerebral palsy, but it doesn't take away who I really am as a person. Am I, quote, disabled to the world? Yes. On paper, absolutely. But to God, absolutely not. I do have cerebral palsy, and it does affect my life, and you're going to find out how and why in just a little bit. But for tonight, I want to ask you a question to get us started. I want to know what makes you, you. What makes you who you are. A lot of people know me because I do have cerebral palsy, but there's a lot more to my life than just that one thing. So what makes you who you are, and what makes you unique as an individual? I'm going to start from the beginning, because tonight you're going to find out how I got from disabled to being able to do almost anything with God's help. So I started out with cerebral palsy, and at the beginning, doctors told me that I wasn't going to be able to do anything. They told me that I wasn't going to be able to play sports, that I wasn't going to go to school like everyone else. And the older I got, the harder it got, because it also changes my physical appearance. I used to have my feet were almost turned in, not completely backwards, and I can't even do it all the way now because it's not natural. But my feet used to be turned in like this, and I used to walk on my toes. So I want you to envision a different person, because that's what I used to look like. And I used to have braces on my legs. None of this used to even happen. So how did I go from that to this? Well, I had cerebral palsy, and they told me I wasn't going to be anything. And the older I got, the more limits I realized that I began to have. I would watch and go to school and realize that something was different. I didn't understand what was different. I just knew that something wasn't like everyone else. And I didn't want to be known for having cerebral palsy. That's not what my life is about, and that's not what my heart is about. But that's what everybody knew. And we come to school, or we go to work, and you might be standing in front of people looking happy, and not everybody knows what's going on in here. You can go to school, and I'm very good at this. Okay, I'm not afraid to say that. But I can go to school or go to work, and I'm one of those people that can go into a crowd of people and make it seem like nothing could ever be wrong. And then you go home, and it's a completely different person. Now, am I the same person up here as I am at home? Absolutely. But there was a time where that didn't exist. I would go home from school or church and slide down the wall because in my mind I thought I was ugly. I would go to school and people would stare at me because I looked different from them. Well, why doesn't she walk like everyone else? Why doesn't she finish her work like everybody else? And is she going to become anything? I heard that all the time. And I remember sitting in meetings with my teachers, and they would sit there and determine who I was going to be. Now that's a very frustrating place to be, because in my mind, I want to accomplish something, but nobody was giving me the opportunity to try it for myself. There's nothing like sitting in a meeting full of people that are supposed to guide you and direct you, but yet they're determining who you're going to be before you even start. Doctors already told me that I wasn't going to accomplish anything right from the beginning. So they already disqualified me before I even started the race of my entire life. Rebecca is not going to do sports. And I already heard that I wasn't pretty, because that's what kids told me. And I already worked as hard as I possibly could, but I had nothing to show for it. And then I would go home and sit and wait. But nobody ever knew that that would happen, because I never showed it. So I know exactly where some of you are right now. Maybe you're walking in here and you're wondering if you're beautiful or not. Maybe you don't feel like you're enough, or you work hard enough. Well, I know exactly what that feels like. And I would walk down the hallway wanting to reach out for your hand, but you wouldn't touch my hand because I look different from you. And then I would go to the doctor, and they would discuss what they were going to do with my body next. When I was 4 years old, I had a major back surgery that basically changed my life. It was eventually going to change it for the better, but it did not show up until later. They operated on my spine, but what they were going to have to do was take out a portion of my spine and then put it back in. Now they took it out because they had to cut all the muscles and nerves to my legs, which is the very reason why I'm able to stand the way that I am right now. They cut all the muscles and nerves to my legs so that I could stand with my feet straight. But when you cut somebody's muscles and nerves to your legs, it's like hitting the reset button to your brain and then plugging it back in. So for me, I went from being able to do a little bit of something and walking the way that I always knew, because walking with my feet almost backwards was the only way that I ever knew. And for me, visually, it changes the way that I process things. So if I'm in school and I hear somebody reading a book, I can tell you everything that you just told me. If you're reading a book to me, I can tell you everything that you just said. I can tell you what the book is about, what we're reading about, and everything in between. I can tell you more details than you wanted to know because somebody's reading it to me. But if I read it myself, by the time I get to the bottom of the page, I can't always remember what the top part says. So I'm having to read things over and over and over. I can't see the way people see things. And if you give me a math problem, I know how to do adding and subtraction, but I'm not going to be able to memorize every multiplication table. To this day, I still do not have them all memorized. Do I understand the process? Yes. I understand how to multiply, but I cannot work it out in my brain. I can't work math problems in my head. I can't put it on paper. I will fail your test every single time. But if you give me a calculator, I'll ace it in every second. But do I understand it? Absolutely. So trying to communicate that with teachers and then study more times than you can count, more hours than you can count, and have nothing to show for it becomes very frustrating. So I know how it feels to look at yourself and feel like a failure and look at your grades and say that I'm not worth anything. Why? Because I'm failing everything that you're giving me, and I'm working just as hard as you, and I have nothing to show for it. I can't walk like you, I can't talk like you, I can't write on the paper like you, and not only am I having to figure out how to relearn all of that, I don't look like you either. So imagine coming home from school, feeling like that every day, looking in the mirror, standing like this, and I had a really big problem with my weight as I got older. So all I saw was the commercials and the TV ads and what everybody else was wearing. And as I got older, it got harder because I even cut my hair to get people to not look at what I thought was ugly. I would stand in the mirror like this, go home and look at the mirror and try to figure out what was wrong with me. Well, why don't I weigh this much? Why don't I have what so-and-so has? Why can they run faster than me? Why can't I play on the playground like everybody else? Why can't I pass the test? And why is everybody telling me that I'm a failure before I have a chance to start? That was reality every day for me. And I had a school teacher in first grade. She read Juna B. Jones every day in school, and that was my favorite part because she was reading to me every day, and I could tell you everything that she said. But I wore braces to school, and I had a really hard time with my walking, so I fell a lot. It was not abnormal to me to come to school with Band-Aids all over my legs. That was normal for me all the time. But there was one day in particular that I came to school, and this was one teacher that looked past my grades, looked past what I was writing on the paper, and she saw who I really was. And she kind of guarded me from all the other kids so that I wouldn't get stampeded by the crowd of people every day. So I would go to school, and there was one day that I came to school with my braces on backwards. Now, when you're getting ready at 6 a.m. in the dark, you're going to put them on backwards. It's just going to happen. It's okay. But I didn't say anything. I just went to school, and by the time I got to school, my feet were really sore, and I couldn't figure out why. So I took them off, so she took my shoes off. I didn't have to tell her anything. She just automatically knew how to do it, which was amazing. Because to a 6-year-old, that's like, whoa, how did you know how to do that? It's like a superhero. What kind of superpower do you have? I want to know what it is. Thank you. Okay, so she took them off, and she put them on, and then I would fall down sometimes. That just happens. And she, instead of leaving me there on the floor, she would grab me by the hand and take me with her. And if I fell on the playground or the driveway or the parking lot, she wouldn't let anybody else do it. She would take me by myself to her room and put the Band-Aid on by herself. And then I realized later on that I was going to be that person for someone else. How did I get started speaking? I started at 16 years old in another country that did not speak English very well. They spoke English, but it was a different dialect. I had no time to prepare. I had less than 12 hours. I'm still on a mission trip painting more railing than I can imagine because I'm painting dorm rooms. That's how this got started. And I came home and I told my mom that I was going to be a speaker when I grew up, and I was completely mute all the way through school. So to go from that to this can only happen because of God. But here's what happened before that one trip. When I was 12 years old, somebody finally told me something that I was longing to hear my entire life, and I didn't realize it because it got buried beneath surgeries and therapy and braces. But all I ever wanted to hear was that I was beautiful the way that I was. And I didn't hear that until I was 12. So for 12 years, I went to school looking like this. Rebecca's not good enough. Rebecca's not smart enough, and she's not going to pass the test. So why do we even bother putting her in this room anyway? She falls down a lot, but she still manages to find a way to get back up. I try as hard as I can, and I have nothing to show for it, and all I keep doing is going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth to the doctor so that they can fix it. And I keep having to start over and over and over again. I was in a wheelchair, worked my way out of a wheelchair, and then got put back into one a few years later and started over again. And I was bullied to the point of having my arm broken in 3rd grade, just because I didn't look like them. I was overweight, yep. I wore braces on my legs, I wore glasses. And all of that happened just because I looked different from somebody else. Somebody thought it was funny when I broke my arm. Somebody thought it was funny when blood was going down my leg. And then I joke with people all the time. I fell the other day at school, and my teacher freaked out. She's like, "Rebecca, are you okay?" I fell in a hole. Great. Broke my hole. I'm running towards the playground. I'm a substitute teacher on the side, so that's how all this crazy stuff happens. I was so excited. I was running towards the playground. Run, run, run. And there's the hole. Didn't know the hole was there. Didn't know the hole was there. And now we have blood going down my leg. And here's the teacher, same one that I've had all my life. And she's like, "Rebecca, are you okay?" "I'm good. I was built for it tough. I'm used to this." And you know what? I ripped my jeans too, and you know what? People pay extra for that, so I just got mine for free. I'm gonna keep these jeans. I got my nice fit. I'm in style now. All I have to do is wash the blood out, and we'll be okay. That really happened. That was just 2 weeks ago. I washed the blood out. Jeans are hanging in my closet, and yes, I'm going to wear them on a Friday when I can't get in trouble. So yeah, that's what happens when I fall down now. But that's not how it always was. I went to school waiting for somebody to tell me that I was worth something. And it didn't happen until I was 12. And I was homeschooled because the bullying got so bad, I had just gotten to where I had enough. And I was behind on everything, so I was pulled out and I was homeschooled. My mom homeschooled me for 3 years, and then I had to go back. And at this time, something in me had changed, but it was time to put it to work. And I didn't know what that was going to look like until later. I went to 9th grade, and I went back to public school. And for the entire first semester, I didn't say a word. And I was sitting in math class one day in algebra, or no, wait, was it algebra? Not algebra. No, wait, it was algebra. It was algebra. I had to think about that. It was algebra. I'm sitting there. I don't have a clue what this teacher's telling me every day. I don't understand what he's doing. I'm just sitting there watching. He knows I'm trying because I'm writing down everything that he's writing, but I don't know what it means. And he calls me up, and I'm like, oh man. And we had the active boards in our classroom, and I took the pen, and he's like walking me through this problem. And all the kids are like watching me, eye for an eye, staring directly at, like I'm staring at you right now. That's how these kids are staring at me. Staring at me like this. And I'm walking up, down the aisle to get to the front of the room, and all the kids are turning their heads, watching me walk to the front. And when I got finished working this problem, the best that I could, it was still wrong, but I still came up there anyway. And I handed the pen back and said, here you go. And one of the kids was like, she has a voice. She finally talked. And all I said was, here you go. And then I quickly ran back. That was my first words back in public school. But my very first day, I had something really life-changing happen. Because it was that turning point for me that I knew was coming. I walked into the classroom with the same resource kids that I had my entire life. They hadn't seen me in 3 years. I had lost probably about 50 pounds. I had no braces on my legs. And at this point, they're pretty much seeing me how you're seeing me right now. And they looked directly at me and they said, aren't you the girl that used to walk funny? And I just sat there because I didn't know what to say. You knew what my name was. These kids knew my name. But to them, I was just the kid that used to walk funny. I had been gone for 3 years, and that's all you have to say to me? That's all you remember me for? Is because I was the girl that walked funny? You don't ask me why I've been gone for 3 years. They don't ask me what in the world happened, because this did not used to be. No. No. This did not used to look like this. Aren't you the girl that used to walk funny? And not knowing what else to say, I said yes. And I couldn't explain to these kids what happened. The only thing I knew to do was to show them. And a couple of weeks later, after this happened, I was 6 months away from testing for my black belt in karate. But these kids didn't know that. And I was fixing to use it. These kids didn't know that I was 6 months away from testing for my black belt. And one of the kids saw me with a karate t-shirt on. And he's like, do you really take karate? I said, yes. And as far as he's concerned, I'm a white belt. So he has no idea what's about to happen. Because in karate, they do teach you karate. But they also teach you how to protect yourself with self-defense. And I majored in self-defense. And part of self-defense is preventing people from hurting you before it happens. So, I go to class, and he asked me if I took karate. I said yes. He's like, okay, stand up. And the teacher's gone, okay? Teacher is nowhere to be found. And it's me and this kid and about 6 other people at a table. I'm standing up at this table, slide my chair in, and he's standing right in front of me, and we're actually about the same height. So he's standing in front of me, and he's about yay big. So, standing in front of me, and inside my head, this is how my mind thinks. So, in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to hurt you. You're going to hurt yourself. I'm not going to hurt you at all. So he stands up, and the first thing that he does is throw a punch at me. I didn't hit him. The only thing I did was block him before he hit me. I didn't hit him. And then I also thought this. God said turn the other cheek, but he didn't say let him hit it. Didn't let him hit it. Okay. Didn't hurt nobody. I blocked it. But I blocked it in such a way that if he turned the wrong way, it would break his own hand. But it didn't hurt him. And he walked away, and then he quietly sat down, and needless to say, after that, we didn't have any problems. But how many times in our life is that the enemy facing us? Who are we to stand up and say, I'm going to go to church, I'm going to do this, I'm going to live this Christian thing, if it kills me, and it will if you do it that way. But how many times do we do that and say, I'm going to win, I'm going to win, I'm going to win, when God's already won? God already knew that I was going to look different. He already knew that I was going to have surgeries. But if I hadn't gone through all of that, plus some more, then I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing right now. And when I stood up in front of the entire classroom with the people that only knew me because I was the girl that used to walk funny, I finally had a chance to stand up and say, I'm not the same person that you used to know. I'm not the girl with braces on my feet anymore. I'm not the one that walks around looking like, she just eats way too much. And you know what? Who cares? It doesn't matter how much I weigh. It doesn't matter that I had braces on. Because you know what? God took that out. And God's really cool because he has this way of taking us and sculpting us into something more beautiful than we could ever think. Because for me, the way I look at myself is like God put me on a potter's wheel, and he molded and he crafted me into exactly who he wanted me to be. But what happens at the end is he puts us in a kiln, and sometimes that can burn. When something goes into a kiln, it purifies it and it makes it really glossy and pretty. Okay, well, my braces are gone. Yeah, it hurt. I'm not in a wheelchair anymore. Yeah, it hurt. But that's exactly what happened. He stripped away everything. And without that, I wouldn't have the nerve to stand up in front of the entire class and just figuratively stand up to the enemy of my entire life and say, I'm not going to let you beat me anymore. I didn't take karate just to say I have karate. I took karate so I could learn how to kick the devil's butt. Just saying. Never said that in public before. But sometimes that's exactly what has to happen. That's what this is for. And we forget that God made us, which means he already knew that I was going to have cerebral palsy. He already knew all this stuff because he made me that way. God calls you to be his. And God doesn't make junk. Cerebral palsy can be one of the most frustrating, aggravating, life-determining factors that you could ever have. And I've seen what it's like to have it worse. And I'm not talking about myself. I've met several people who are permanently in a wheelchair. I've met other people that have issues with their speech. It didn't affect my speech. Do I still have it? Yep. But it's how I'm able to use it now that makes the difference. God took something as ugly as that and turned it into something beautiful. And He took me and somebody that I thought was ugly. He took a girl that used to look into the mirror thinking that she was ugly because she was looking at all the magazines and all the commercials and all the makeup, and she thought that that's what made her beautiful. If I cut my hair, maybe nobody will notice. If I go get a new kind of shoe, maybe nobody will notice. Maybe if I wear this kind of shirt, maybe they won't notice. If I wear these kind of pants, maybe they won't notice my braces. Maybe they won't notice my flaws. But at the end of the day, I'm going to go home and I'm going to rip them off and I'm going to unveil everything that I've been hiding just because I don't want anybody else to see it. He took all of that. And just because somebody finally took the time to tell me that I was beautiful the way that I was, and told me that I was worth something, and told me that I finally, in a way that I could finally understand that I belong to God and He knew everything about me. The Bible says that we're His, and His thoughts are always higher than ours. One of the things that I love about God is that He always thinks more of me than I do of myself. And we forget who we actually belong to. Everybody look at the fingerprints on your hands. Put them up like this. Look at them. Okay. When I became a substitute teacher, they had me do my fingerprints. They have you go through a machine. They stick your hand in some ink and they scan your fingerprints. Why? Because those fingerprints only belong to me. Nobody else has the same fingerprint as you. There are at least 1.billion people. Not a scientist, I'm just 1.billion gajillion people on the planet. And none of them are replicas of each other. Only God could do that. Even twins don't have the same fingerprints. And I know some twins, okay? My dad is a twin. Even they don't have the same fingerprints as each other. I'm able to stand up here because somebody finally told me that I was worth something. And when I got old enough, I decided that I was going to do that for somebody else. Because somebody did that for me, I'm able to stand up here and tell you the same thing. And some of you have never even seen me before or met me before and knew nothing about me. But you can look in my eyes and tell that I actually mean what I say. But it's not because of how much money I have in my bank account, and it's not because I drive a fancy car. No. It's because you're seeing what I've gone through and what's in my heart. That has nothing to do with anything else. I didn't find my value in the clothes that I wore or the shoes that I wore. I do have a minor shoe sort of addiction, okay, because I never could wear regular shoes with braces, okay. I do like shoes. I do like the shoes. But I won't ever claim to take credit for all of this because I didn't do it. But you also have to know that it took me my entire life to get here. I didn't have books on a table until just a couple of years ago. And that was a big step of faith. Just a quick side story. I was working at a daycare at the time, and I had just lost a job prior to that. And so for a little while, I was unemployed, didn't have a job. But somewhere deep inside, I knew that I was going to be okay. And people were asking, what were you going to do? What are you going to do? And people love it when you tell them you don't know. I don't know, but I'm okay. Well, are you just going to sit and watch TV all day? I said, no. I said, I'm going to wait and see where I'm going to go. Now, I ended up working in a daycare for 3 months, and that was really crazy. And I know now that I should have never ever work there. But I only went there because somebody pushed me so hard that I finally just gave in, but then I learned my lesson to never do that again. 10 2-year-olds by yourself. I learned very quickly how to enhance my prayer life. In front of 10 2-year-olds. But in the midst of that, I met with a college guidance counselor because I halfway considered going back to school even though I didn't really want to. And I sat in front of her for an hour and a half, and she's like, well, what do you want to do? I said, I want to be a speaker. That's what I want to do for my full-time job. I want to go into ministry, and here's why, and here's a little bit of my story. And she didn't say anything for an hour and a half. Until we got to the end, I was like, is she okay? Like, what's going on? And she said, well, I used to be a speaker myself, and I can tell that you really don't want to go to school. I said, no, ma'am, I don't. And she said, well, I'm also a writer. I said, well, that's awesome. That's nice. Thanks for telling me. But she said, I've sat and I've listened to you for an hour and a half, and I don't want your money. I don't even want you to sign up for the school. And I'm not even going to give you a class list. And part of that was because I knew that I couldn't pass the math exam to get in. But she looked at me in the face and she told me, she said, I need you to go home and write a book. And this was after 3 years of a school teacher nagging me to death. And I said, no, I hate writing. I don't hate writing anymore. But it took a college guidance counselor, a school teacher nagging me to death. I finally wrote a book. But on that day, walking out of that office, I threw my I had paper. I was ready to go to war, y'all. Like, I had a stack of paper to bring in because they have all these requirements that you're supposed to have. Well, I walked out of that office and I threw all my paperwork away in the trash can, and I never looked back. And I went home that day, got a journal that I had never written in, and started writing my very first book. I had no publisher, had nothing. But on that day, I knew that I was supposed to do that. And it was finally time, after God beat me upside the head with a brick, to write this book. In my journal, at home. Nobody knew that I was writing. My mom has no idea how to do this. How do you write a book? I don't know. I'm just going to start from the beginning, and we'll see what happens. I had no publisher, nothing. 6 months later, I finished writing my first book. I still didn't have a publisher, still didn't have a regular job. I didn't have a publisher until 3 months prior, or 3 months later, so it's like February or March. And the publisher that I had, she said, I don't know why I'm doing this. And she's in Texas. And she says, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I'm going to cut all your costs in half. And I'm going to walk you through this whole thing. And by the time, October came, and this was 2016, and my very first published book came out. I sold out twice. So I went from having absolutely nothing to having that right there. And my children's book, that came in the middle of the night. In the middle of the night at 12:30. While I'm praying, I spent 3 months praying for that children's book over there. I had no idea what I was going to write about, and it finally came. And that has been an amazing experience. But you're looking at somebody who started out with nothing. And because I stepped out on a whim, leap of faith, just took one step at a time, I finally made it to where I am right now. When you tell people that you don't know, it's going to get interesting. My mom had no idea how to do that. How are you going to do this? I don't know. How are you going to pay for it? I don't know. But it's going to be okay. How do you know that? Because I just know. And I know it's going to be all right. I don't have to owe you an answer. I just know that it's going to be okay. That book has gone places that I won't ever get to go. But if I had to look at my life and go through everything that I've gone through again, even if I had a glimpse of what my life would look like right now, back then, knowing that this was at the end, then I would do it again. Because I can't trade anything for a little girl coming up to me, asking me if I had ever cut myself. I said, no, I haven't ever cut myself. And she said, well, I had to figure out why she was asking me. I couldn't tell if she was asking me because she was already cutting herself, or she was trying to stop, or she was already thinking about it. I didn't know what was going on. I was speaking at another church, and in the front of everybody, she raised her hand and asked me this question in front of at least 40 people. And I said, no, I haven't ever cut myself. But I will say this. If you keep cutting yourself, the scars won't heal. I said, I have scars all over my body, everywhere. I have scars from surgeries, I have scars from falling, I have scars everywhere. And the only reason that I'm able to tell you about that is because I let my scars heal. If you let your scars heal, they can become somebody else's hope. It didn't come from the TV, or the magazines, or the weight scales. And she looked at me and she just cried because nobody had ever told her that. A year after I had started speaking, I was at a very small church, maybe at about 15 people. I was just starting out. And there was a lady in the back sitting there. And she looked to be maybe 60 years old, maybe somewhere in there. And I was getting towards the end, and she said, I had never had anybody tell me that I was beautiful. I'm 17. Shouldn't I be taking advice from you? No. My age has nothing to do with this. My entire story. Have I lived 22 years? Yeah. But it feels a lot longer than that. But I'm not here because of what's in my bank account or what kind of car I drive. I'm here because I was willing to go through all of that. And I want you to know that I don't care what kind of money you have, what kind of shirt you got on, what kind of pants you're wearing, what kind of shoes you're wearing. I don't care about any of that. Here's what I care about the most. I care about the fact that you know that you're worth something to the God that created you, and He made you to be enough. Because you're already enough for Him, and He already picked you before you picked Him. You don't have to do anything to impress me. I don't want that. I don't want that. I just want you by yourself. Just the way that you are. I'm like, how is that possible? Because I know what it's like to be on the other side of that. And I don't want you to have to wait another 12 years or 60 years or 50 years to know that. I want you to know it now. I don't need anything else. So please know that I love you just the way that you are, and you don't have to do anything to impress me. But most importantly, I want you to know that you belong to God. And He always thinks more of you than you think of yourself. He knows everything that you're going to go through. He knows what you're going to look like. He knows what you're going to accomplish. He knows everything about you. The good and the bad. And believe me, there's some stuff about me that I don't like. That me and Jesus were still working on. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I'm not made to be perfect. Nobody is. I'm just made to do what God called me to do. No matter what it may look like. And I don't need anything else. And if I had to go through all of that to stand in front of you today, then go ahead. Break my arm. Put me in a wheelchair, because I'll just run you over. I don't care. I'll pop wheelies in the Kroger aisle. It's all right. Nobody knows that, except for you guys. But take it from somebody who's walked through all of that. But it started right here. And in Isaiah, it tells you that He calls you His. It says that He calls you mine. Like you belong to me. But just from earthly perspective in a person, I don't need anything to impress me. If you come up to me weighing 400 pounds, I'm still going to love you anyway. But it all started when one person told me the same thing. She told me that I had a diamond inside of my heart. She said, I'm going to dust it off, and I'm going to hold it up into the light and make a rainbow. And over time, I'm 22 now. That's what happened. God took something as ugly as cerebral palsy. He took a person that looked in the mirror and thought that she was ugly and turned it into this. And now I'm a writer who used to hate writing. I'm a writer who still is learning to love how to read, or learn to love reading. I am a missionary. You don't realize how big the world is until you fly halfway around it. I've run more miles in my car than I can even think about. I've met more people than I could ever dream. But it's all because God took the most ugliest thing and turned it into something beautiful. So tonight, my question for you at the end is not only who are you, but who are you when nobody's looking? Because all this happened when nobody was looking. And if you need to be that, if you needed one person to finally tell you that you were worth something, then I'm not here just by chance. And I hope that one day, because somebody stood in front of you and told you that maybe one day you'll have the same guts and the same stubbornness to stand up and say you're worth something and you don't have to do anything else to impress me. So what's that one thing that you don't like? Only you know the answer to that question. So tonight, I'm going to close. I'm going to let Savannah come up and pray for us and pray for me, because I'm fixing to sit down with you guys. And I'm going to be over there. So if you want to take a picture or come talk to me or pray with me, or you just need somebody, I'm going to be right there. But I'm very thankful to be here with you, and I'm here for you to use me as you see fit. Some of you have my number. If you don't have it, get it. If you call me at 2 a.m., I will answer. I promise. But I'm thankful for this opportunity, and I'm really thankful even for the hard things. And I found myself being thankful for the one thing that I hated. Because without that, I wouldn't be here. So thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for helping me live out the purpose that God gave me. And I'm really glad that I got to share with you the story God wrote for me. Thank you so much.
If you wanna stand right here in the middle, and we can kind of circle around Rebecca. And if you're close, if you just want to put your hands on her so we can pray for her as she continues. So if you want to stand right here, it's kind of in the middle. If y'all just want to stand and kind of get close to the folks